He's also recipient of the Minority Days Award from the Minority Commission, and he is one of the very core friends who is part of these efforts, and he'll be talking about impact of such things on Dalits and Adivasi. Father Ajay, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ram. In fact, the impacts of freedom of religion on Dalit and Adivasi. You see, Dalit and Adivasi constitute nearly 25% of the population in India, and 19% of population belong to the religious minority. But if we put together Dalit, Adivasi, and Dalit Christian and Dalit Muslims, who have a substantial percentage among the minorities, almost 35% of the population in India. So it is just not a minuscule. So in this context, as Temina Arora rightly said, Presidential Order 1950, which is the biggest anti-conversion law in India. In fact, for Dalit Christian, Dalit Muslim, India is no more a secular country. In the way back in 1950 itself, they said that it is no more a secular country because the right to freedom of religion and belief has been snatched by the Dalit Christians, snatched from the Dalit Christian, Dalit Muslims. So what that 1950 presidential order does, in fact, it denies the Dalit of Christians and Muslim origin the identity of being a Dalit. It denies the right, denies the choices, denies to choose the right to freedom of religion and belief. It denies the constitutional fundamental rights as an equal citizen like Dalits of other faith, thus effectively denies them of schemes, entitlement, including education, equal employment, opportunity, and civil political right extended to Dalits of other faith. Finally, that Presidential Order 1950 denies protection or prevention of atrocity against SC/ST, against caste violence. So that is the biggest anti-conversion bill, as Temina ji said. So coming into the anti-conversion law, in fact, the impact, if we want to understand the impact, we have to understand the intent of it. First, if we understand the intent of the act, then we will be able to understand the implication of the act. And there are three major intents of this act, as I see. First is this. You see, despite Section 153A, B in 295A, 505 in the IPC, where it said that if you are into any enmity or religious violation, the IPC is going to take care of it. But despite we are having these sections, what is the need of having this anti-conversion law? First, I do understand. You see, this anti-conversion law is not a just ordinary law. It is an instrument of perpetuation of caste systems, a step towards Hindu Rashtra. You see, that is why basically this violence against Christians happened in wherever there is a substantial presence of tribals and Dalit. And Odisha is the first state in India to introduce in 1967. And we could witness also in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Jharkhand. These are the signs, or these are the things to show that their main target is the Adivasi and Dalits. You see, basically, we now see in 9 states, but what is the focus is that they want to somehow keep them in perpetuation of the caste system. And those who are getting converted from the Dalit and Adivasis, they felt it is a challenge to the hegemony of these caste groups. Second, the intent is to keep Dalit and Adivasi as infantilized, means keeping them as children. That means they do not have a developed conscience, developed mind. That is how the Jharkhand anti-conversion bill came with an advertisement saying that they quoted Mahatma Gandhi. Of course, Mahatma Gandhi remains an enigma for many, but for Dalit, he is very much clear that he was one in a way promoting caste systems. In fact, they quoted and saying that this particular bill, anti-conversion bill, is needed to protect the Adivasi and Dalit, as if Dalit Adivasis do not have conscience, they do not have a mind of their own. And now coming back to the implication of this act, I do see there are 5 implications. First of all, this is a denial of basic human dignity, human rights as a equal citizens. We are having from Article 14 to 30, which gives a basic fundamental constitutional right, and it takes away all these rights. And also it violates the UDHR, ICCPR, and ECOSOC right of international conventions, which gives us right that we have a right to freedom of religion and belief. So it goes against the very human dignity and human rights, both given to us by constitution and international convention. Secondly, it also perpetuates conflicts. Conflict, we see this anti-conversion law creates a conflict between tribal versus tribal, tribal versus Dalit, tribal versus other faiths. So that is what we saw in Gujarat, that is what we saw in Kandhawan, where the Dalit Adivasi, they were fighting the Dalit and Adivasi. And in fact, what happened in Kandhawan and Gujarat, they played a foot soldiers. So basically it is creating conflict and keeping them enslaved so that they cannot come up. Third implication I see, they are destroying the legal identity. Basically this act, in a way, they want to take away the rights of Dalit and Adivasi. In Odisha, I do hear in some places they write on the land records, caste Adivasi Christians. And some places, some people even do not give them a land deed, saying that you are Christians. So they are playing this one. So basically the attempt is to destroy their legal identity. And now there is an attempt also to take away the affirmative action of Adivasi Christians. So the Adivasis are fighting against each other. And the fourth one is this anti-conversion law is a weapon of hate campaign, hate speech, and violence. And it actually originated from the Niyogi report. I have extensively read this Niyogi report, based on which this anti-conversion laws. And in fact, this is a house of harvest of hatred and harvest of, or filled with fake informations, or you say may say that it is a Gita of fake informations. Basically, this is a way of creating hate speech, violence, and link will. And in fact, they are going in mass scales also, individually. And the strategy is that initially they were co-opting the upper caste Christians. Then slowly they went like northeast. They are co-opting the large number of Adivasi and Dalit Christians. And now they are, of course, they are co-opting individual people. And finally, I could say these anti-conversion laws, in fact, destroys economic, cultural, social, religious identity and rights of the community. For example, economical rights. You see, now, as Temina ji was exploring the allurement, fraud, and force. Now, you see, just to cite one example, one of my colleagues happened to go and distribute some food material in a flood affected areas. And there was also a health camp conducted. The doctor is a Hindu, the villagers are Hindus, and those who organize it are also Muslims. But all of them were put under this act. So basically means they want to stop all charitable activities. This is mean in a way they want Dalit and Adivasi remain as a subjugated, enslaved and poor people. Also another thing is this socio-cultural rights. One more thing, Hemant Soren, the present chief minister, presumes this is also a tool for land grabbing. If the Adivasis are fighting against each other, Adivasi Christians versus non-Adivasi Christians, it will be easier to snatch the land. So the socio-cultural rights, in fact, there is an attempt to divide the tribals, because you see, no matter they belong to any religion, both tribal and Dalit, they are somehow proud of their cultural heritage. Here they want to divide that one. So they want to destroy the bonding. And finally, I could say, it also take away the religious rights. You see, you may recall in Chhattisgarh, over 50 gram panchayat, they issued a diktat saying that means non-Hindu cannot come to this village, they cannot worship, they cannot preach, they cannot establish anything. But unfortunately, the High Court struck them down, but the intent is clear to divide the Adivasi and Dalit into different sects, different religion, and create a conflict. So, in fact, as I said, the intent is clear. So, our response has to be multi-pronged and not only just from legal front. And we have to count this Hindu Rashtra, because basically this is a tool to establish the Hindu Rashtra. And for that, to establish Hindu Rashtra, you need a foot soldier who could serve this one, the upper caste. So it is a dual strategy of establishing Hindu Rashtra and establishment of upper caste supremacy caste systems. So we need to proactively work towards it. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Ajay. I am very impressed about this deeper correlation between Dalit Adivasi, this RSS agenda in Dalit Adivasis and its agenda against religious minorities. I do hold that for RSS, on one hand, they want to marginalize religious minorities, and on the other side, they want to subordinate Dalits, Adivasis, and women. Women, of course, is another aspect of the whole agenda. So your presentation brings it out very nicely, and need for a broader struggle for this fight against that. Thank you very much for this insightful presentation.